to Suits and Sneakers, a series featuring sage advice and candid conversations with seasoned leaders from diverse backgrounds and styles. I'm your host, Carrie Tuttle. With my guests, we deep dive into the areas of team engagement, motivation, and effective performance management. Get ready to be inspired and transform your approach to leadership. Please like, subscribe, or follow to be notified when episodes are released. Let's get started. My guest today is Joe Fairleigh, an accomplished 4 times co-founder and entrepreneurial leader. His passion lies in pioneering new markets, orchestrating scalable sales teams, and catalyzing market disruption. With a track record of over $250 million in market disruptive products and solutions sold, he's consistently delivered remarkable results by aligning visionary strategies with hands-on execution. Now he is serving as the Vice President of Growth at NanoTess. Joe, first of all, welcome to Suits and Sneakers.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and then I'm going to turn it over to you to explain really what NanoTess is doing because it's so exciting and innovative.
Yeah, it's really pretty phenomenal. I mean, in a nutshell, we help heal people. And how we do that is the technology, it's a long word, a heterogeneous biocatalyst. What it does is effectively in the form of a gel, you put it on your skin, anything from a scratch to a chronic wound, and it enables the body to heal using less resources and energy than would normally be needed. So it's almost like, when you're a little kid, you heal faster than when you're a teenager, you heal faster than when you're 40. So it allows the body to work in those optimal conditions. And it's an antimicrobial and an anti-inflammatory. And so it does all of that together, kind of a 3-in-1. So you're
Amazing.
helping a lot of people heal, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's such exciting technology. And when I first heard, you and I know each other from university, but had reconnected after a bit of a time. So when you first told me about it, I was just like, this is incredible. Can you tell an example of the test cases or best case scenario from using your product?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. And where it started was really our founders. And for one of them, really, it was in the effort to save his parents who had chronic conditions. And it was in that effort that really started what became NanoTess and, what developed into the lines that we're using today. And we've all had people in our lives who had either succumbed to their wounds or had them that affected them. And so everybody has very much, within our company, a very personal story about things. And I mean, we've had, there's the nice lighthearted things of little kids who have stubbed their toes riding their tricycle that, the next day it's healed, to climbers and athletes who, I mean, their tools are their hands or their feet, and having those heal so rapidly where they can compete the next day. But I would say that a lot of it are those who have experienced pressure wounds in the hospital, those who are diabetic, a lot of seniors who are in places where their bodies just don't heal quickly and oftentimes don't heal, period. And the ability to then take these people and go beyond just healing the physical wound itself. So sometimes these are wounds that have been there literally years. That then, with the help, and it's not pixie dust, so you still need the nursing, you still need the right care. But with that, allowing that person to heal has such a deeper effect than just the wound in the skin itself. I mean, they really get a sense of purpose again. They feel they can go out, they smile, their life isn't working around that. And so being able to help that many people, and even the nurses, the doctors, like, they do this for a reason. I mean, they're doing their profession to help people. And when they can then do that easier and faster and see the results, it's just, it's heartwarming.
Yeah, that's just amazing. Like, and improving people's quality of life so quickly instead of having to wait and risk infection as well. So
Infection, their quality of life, and then their caregivers and their family. I mean, there's very much a psych-emotional side to it too, and quite the impact that it can have. And so for something that's also based in Calgary, made in Canada, produced in Canada, entrepreneurial, our CEO, Megan Leslie, and then Julian Mulia, the other co-founder. I mean, they're phenomenally smart people. And so taking that and just seeing how it's growing is really, it's quite wonderful.
Yeah, that's really incredible. How did you come to be part of this team?
Persistence, I would say, is I had moved back to Calgary. We had lived in the States for about 20 years and then decided to move back to Calgary to be closer to family. And at one of the, award entrepreneur of the year type awards at the Telecenter downtown in Calgary, they were one of the top 10. I don't remember where they placed. I mean, to me, they were absolutely number one. Like, oh, this is intriguing. And this was probably now almost 3 years ago. And very early on, and the focus was very much on diabetic foot ulcers, which are extremely difficult to heal. And where my mind went was, well, wait a minute. If you're healing people that don't heal and are seniors, what about younger people? What about those with healthier bodies? Which the answer was, well, it'll heal those faster. And I've done a lot with the US military. So then my mind went to, okay, so wait a minute. So if you put this on, you have an antimicrobial barrier. Yeah. And it's an anti-inflammatory. Yes. And now it's enabling the body to heal at the same time. Yes. Is it shelf stable? Yeah. Desert? Fine. Arctic? Yeah, it can freeze. It doesn't matter. So my head's going to military. Like, oh my goodness. Let alone everywhere else. So I'm giving you a long story to seeing that. And then for Megan, it was really persistence because I think everybody was telling her she had something amazing. And I did a really bad sales job because I was so excited about it. So instead of being coy and, well, maybe it's interesting, I was like, no, this could be, which, they already knew. They founded it. They know. And so really it got to the point where I said, all right, look, I'll do it for free for a while. Like, just let's see. And I couldn't do a lot, but it was that. And then, see how everybody works and how each other work. And
Yeah.
that's how I got to do it, because I think I don't know if you can actually wear down Megan, but I think she was eventually convinced that it would be okay to have me around.
Yeah. Well, and you've been there a while, so I'm sure she's not regretting that decision.
I think, okay, Megan, if you're listening, like, I'm saying positive things, right? Yes.
So back us up, you were in the US. What was your kind of last team that you were working with there?
So the last was, we were based out of Florida. And so really we'd started a few different companies. It was almost like a kind of a mix of private equity, home office, where basically the founder, main principal, would come up with an idea. And then it was my job to figure out how to get it to market.
Okay.
And so his quote that he liked to use was, go drain the ocean. Don't bore me with the details. Or it's like, okay, all right, got it. And so the companies range from selling to the US military for something that effectively was a cooling unit, but then we positioned it for how to improve their throughput, improve safety, mission readiness. A CPG company, which was focused on, like, early on when there was really just Red Bull and 5 Hour. It looked like an M&M, but you have a few of those. It was like having an espresso. It was chocolate. And so there was a team for that. We got things on the industrial side, software side, NFL, NCAA. So we've had the interesting opportunity to lead teams going into a wide variety of different segments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've shared with me before that the majority of your experience has been building teams from scratch. What interests you about that kind of leadership? More on that in a moment. If you're listening to this episode wishing you can get more out of your team alongside other purpose-driven leaders who want to be more effective, I encourage you to take a look at my program, Leading with Engagement. In it, I provide training and a practice field to gain confidence in communicating expectations that help team members stretch themselves and wow your customers. You'll gain a framework for giving meaningful feedback that motivates and inspires them to engage. Among other skills, you'll learn to delegate and track performance to free up your time to lead more strategically. Go to teammojo.ca for more information. Now, back to the episode. The majority of your experience has been building teams from scratch. What interests you about that kind of leadership?
What I find interesting on that, I mean, when it's building teams, my experience, just how it's worked out, has usually been with companies where we're pursuing markets in which there's no category for what it is we offer. So it's not a slightly nicer mousetrap. It's not, okay, I know you're using this, but you can use this. It's like just that. There's no category for it. the result of that is really needing to understand what they care about and why, and really going from that perspective. I think there's often a misstep with founders in they've created something. They're very excited to tell everybody what they've created and what it is and why it's special. And they're taking it from the perspective of their intelligence and acumen of what it is they made, as opposed to kind of that classic what's in it for me from the other person's perspective. Why do they care? Because to be frank, they don't care what you did. But if you talk about why they might care, then you do get their attention. And so I think in building the teams back, why I'm saying this is what I find interesting then is finding the people that really understand the pain that our clientele might be facing and why they're facing it, why it matters, if it matters, and how to get that prioritized. And what I find really fascinating about it is really it's almost like a personality profile. There's certain individuals, and we found in certain roles that, in their past careers, where if you can get these types of people, they can be excellent salespeople, excellent in business development. They don't think of themselves as that, but they've really been trained on how to do that effectively. And so then it's just fine tuning them on positioning and, some sales acumen, but they know that. And so building those types, then going into those markets, we have immense credibility because we're already speaking our client's language. We understand it. Our team understands it inside out because they've already been there. And because of where we've picked them from, they have that personality to want to, if you want to say, open the door, kick in the door, and get there in front of the client. I find that quite gratifying, then really understanding the clients more than sometimes they actually understand what's happening in their own operation.
That's usually the case, right? Like you go in and you're the specialist, you're the surgeon. And meanwhile, they're asking for an aspirin. And, to use that old analogy, but they think they know what they need when in fact they need to tell you what the pain is and what the symptoms are. And you ask a whole bunch of questions and then you can provide a solution.
There you
So,
go. There was,
yeah.
who was it? There's somebody, I think you know something about that. They kind of
I
talk
think I
about that
might
sort of
know an
thing.
organization
Yeah,
that
there's
teaches
somebody that's
about
something
that.
to find the pain and things. Yeah, so there's some similarities in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I would say, though, that's a different skill set and a different management skill set from a sales leader point of view than somebody who comes into a team and maybe is helping to grow from an existing base and or make some sort of HR changes. Forming a team from scratch is very different.
Look, from scratch, I mean, you're looking for a mix of people who can deal with uncertainty. And what I've realized, and actually I've only came to this conclusion at NanoTess from seeing some former nurses that we hired, where I mean, we have one that I think of that is an uncanny ability to handle uncertainty, but also crave structure. And if you think doctors, nurses, I mean, think nurses in a hospital setting or ER setting, like there can be chaos and they have to be able to thrive in that. And you don't know what's going to happen next. And at the same time, one does need to know if this happens, here's the next step. Then it's this step, then it's this step. And so I think on those early stages, when you can have, and this is kind of a dream, but have those people that can deal with uncertainty and then also then want to create structure from it, then you can scale. And so that's a tough mix. But to your question, if we can have the people early on that can deal with uncertainty, that's I would say one of the biggest things. Because if they demand too much structure, it's not going to work up front. But
Right.
eventually, that structure does need to get put into place, or else you're just going to have chaos forever, and that's not going to work.
So, what's your role as a leader in that kind of growth scenario?
So, I mean, going back to even for existing teams, and I should answer your previous question instead of just giving you all stories, is the difference for going from scratch to an existing. I think for existing, still, if you want to grow, it's still to really understand, do they understand their customer? And really looking at the base of these sales teams and how are they getting their business? And there's a lot of large organizations that are just getting revenue. It's more or less they're there. And people have been buying it. And it's, I hate to say autopilot, but almost autopilot. And there's a lot of opportunities that are missed because they're not, frankly, hungry. And so I think it's really important to, in a sense, almost stay paranoid that someone is going to try to take your business. And how do you know? I mean, just that question. I mean, a basic question to an existing sales team. Okay, so you got this order. Why? Well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but why this? Have they bought it before? Why did they buy it last time? So why are they buying it? Like, so how are they using it this time? Is it the same or different? How do we know? And very
So,
rarely are there concrete answers to that, which then is a big flashing red light of, okay, well, let's find this out. If they know, great. But that's where the digging starts to go in. And then that's where you start to rearrange some things on the sales side and positioning side.
so you're saying debrief the win.
Well, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Debrief the win, debrief the loss, but you need to debrief the wins. I mean, this is almost like for SaaS companies when they talk about NRR, net revenue retention. So what is my growth or retention of existing? So not where am I hiding it by acquiring new customers? Oh, look, we're up 102% year over year, but we lost 60% of our existing. We just acquiring new. Ignore new. What happened with your existing? Because if they start to drop off, I mean, you're sinking. So you really have to know why. And so if you're winning, really understand why. Because there might be something, there's a pattern somewhere. And then you want to see what's happening there, because then if you can amplify that and then amplify that to new clients, new prospects, now you really have the opportunity to grow.
It sounds like you're data driven. Is that true?
I'm data driven with a lot of, yeah, I mean, I think it's a bad answer ever to say instinct. There's patterns. I'm going to patterns because there's something, and it's really getting into, who's touching it, who's benefiting from it, why, how. So yeah, there will be data behind it always, once you get enough of it. But there's influencers. It's almost the subjective. There's the influencer side, and then there's the data that's going to back that up. But I'll give the example. So right now we're selling something that helps heal people. Okay, great. So it helps heal people. So who makes the decision for that? Well, it depends. So let's take a long-term care organization. All right. So you might have a VP of operations, might be the CEO, could be the VP of, like their chief medical officer. All right. So they approve it. All right. Let's say they said, yes, we're going to do it for our 20 facilities. Okay. Hooray. High fives. Great order. Okay. So it gets to the home. What happens now? Well, who's in charge of what happens there? Well, they might have standards. They might be a little bit different. Well, there's also staff turnover, nursing. It's hard to keep people, 30, 40% turnover. You have your director of care. All right, great. Who's applying it onto the person? Well, this nurse here. Okay, did they make the decision there? No, they wouldn't make the decision there. Okay, well, why are they going to use it? Are they told every time? Well, we have standards. Okay, how do they remember? What if they came from somewhere else? Does this add time? Does it add cost somewhere else? Does this make it easier? How does this affect their interaction? And because it's all these areas then where things can fall apart. And so it's understanding that, which is tough, but that's where it gets into the pattern then. Okay, so this matters here, this matters here, this matters here. How do we convey that? Go to a CPG side. So consumer packaged good. Think you're selling a chocolate bar. Great. So Carrie, you have a new chocolate bar. It's a delicious chocolate bar. It's a fantastic chocolate bar. It is so delicious. You get into, who's big? Let's go for 7-Eleven. Everyone knows 7-Eleven. So there's what, 10, 15,000 7-Elevens. Who do you think ultimately, who's going to put your box of chocolate bars that you sold to procurement, who puts it on the shelf? The highest paid person in the company or the lowest paid person?
Lowest.
The lowest paid person in the company is going to put it on the shelf. Now, they were probably told in the planogram where to put it, but you spent all this time on the design of the box, and it opens a certain way and it comes down so it has this beautiful facade. And what do you think happens when they go to open that box because they have to stick it on the shelf? How much care do they put in opening that case?
Yeah, they probably just rip off the top, right?
Gone. You spent all that time, gone. And they put it on a shelf that's this tall, and your lip goes almost up to that because you didn't cut it down, so you didn't think. And so now all people see is something that says Carrie. They don't even see Carrie. They see half of it and they don't see what it is. Like,
Yeah. And they probably see the best before date or something like that.
You see something, you're like, crap, I didn't think about that, but I told them how this appeals to this market and this segment and this, which it does if they saw it and if they understood it. So touch and learn everybody in that whole cycle that's going to be affected by your
Mm.
product or solution and see how it impacts them, and then you'll learn.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm thinking too, like you talked a little bit about the data and the instinct or intuition. I forget what was the word you used.
Yeah, I mean, there's instinct, but I mean, the data is going
Yeah.
to be behind. Like you have to get your hands dirty. You have to go there. You have to see it. You have to watch it. I
Yeah.
mean, so if you want to say the data, it is data because it's the data of what you're observing and what you're seeing, how they're interacting, and it's not just a focus group. I mean, focus groups can, I don't know, I'm a little jaded in focus groups, but it's, you know, go in and see an A/B test and change something, and what's the impact if you do this?
Okay. Because that's what I was going to ask is what data points do you look at? And then where do you use instinct? Especially when it comes to this, where you've got multi levels of decision making and I guess touch points with your product and with the end recipient.
Yeah, I mean, look, for the data, it's, I know I keep saying patterns, but you're trying to see like there's going to be a correlation somewhere. And so the data can be like, I mean, I can keep using medical examples, but if I try to use a neutral example, say we're selling something, you're selling something into, I don't know, a restaurant. So then it's all right, well, we have high utilization at these types of restaurants, but low over here. Oh, it must be geography. Okay, well, all right, well, let's go a little bit deeper. What else?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's this type. Well, how many servers are there? What's the ratio of your device to servers? What about time of day? Are there bartenders? Who's giving it? Are they doing it at the table or are they doing it somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the clientele that's coming in to these places? How does that differ from the low utilization to the high utilization? Who gave the approval on both? What training was done to the staff on both? Did it differ? What was the timing between when it was trained, they were trained to when they started using it?
Mm-hmm.
How much? Because there's going to be something there that then is, here, this. Okay. So we did training 3 times after because turnover is so high. And here we changed it to this. Okay. So now track that and see. And so you're
Mm-hmm.
almost doing this like cohorts. All right. These 10, here's our hypothesis. Gut is bad or instinct. Do a hypothesis. Here's our hypothesis. All right, okay, this is consistent. This doesn't seem to change. All right, we think this. Now we're tracking this, and then we adjusted. All right, and eventually you'll work down. And if you look, and there's lots of things if you Google it, if you look at things like Slack, what did Slack do? I mean, they were looking basically at what was theirs? It was how many times people accessed or how many messages were sent in a day. And they knew if they could get to a certain threshold, they're like, we got them. So that's the same thing. It's what is that I got you? And it's not necessarily obvious of what it is up front. And it might be like a third tier byproduct of what you're ultimately trying to do. But if that happens, okay. And if it doesn't, that's your early indicator, your leading measure that you're in trouble. And you don't want to get to that lag indicator of we just lost 20%. You want the leading of we saw we didn't get to do this training. We're going to lose them in 6 months if we don't correct now.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to know up front. So for data, that goes even to sales forecasting, right? What are your leading measures? Not your lag. Lag is I hit quota, I didn't hit quota. Yay, crap. Leading
Now what?
is, again, not just calls, not just emails, because you can game the heck out of that. So what's the leading measure? All right. And then you find out if I can get to this, if we do this type of presentation, if I have the economic decision maker in when we do X, I have a much higher probability of closing. Great. How many economic decision makers did you get to meet out of your 10 open ops? 2. All right. So we're not on a good path here. What can we do?
How much of that data do you let your team dig for and give to you versus you digging for it and then sharing with the team to use for like coaching conversations, for example?
I think for things like this, I think it's important that the teams are always really searching to understand. And I think if it's in the culture of that, again, what's in it for me from the client perspective, whoever's going to touch it, if we are debriefing enough, so internally we do what we call our ahas and oh craps. And so the ahas are, hey, good describe. I didn't know this. This was great. This happened. The oh craps are more important. And we celebrate the oh craps. It's not, I went in, I had the wrong name on this because I had a template and oh, did that go badly? And now I'm going to get in trouble with my boss. Any oh crap that is shared, I 100% guarantee somebody else has done it or will do it. And so by celebrating the oh craps and sharing those, one, it makes it a safe environment. And also, we become a lot better because it's out there and then others learn from it. And we also see how to mitigate that issue. And so by having, I think, those constant in the DNA of the organization, it allows us and it makes people somewhat inquisitive and curious and trying to find out, okay, well, this happened. I was interested about this. And this is what I saw. They may not connect the dots, but we really you want to try to de-silo quickly. Like if it's like, well, we have our pharmacy group, then we have this group, then we have this group, and there's no sharing, then those ahas and oh craps get missed. And so you do want to have some forum where those things can happen. And it may not be the individual who makes the connection, but it could be somebody higher that does it.
Yeah, that's
But then when
great
you
that you
find
share
it,
that.
then you're getting everybody to be tracking that. So leading measures, people then will be aware because they'll hear it so much. They'll hear it ad nauseum, and then they'll, oh, I need to know.
Yeah, that's so cool. How would your team describe, or even previous teams describe, your leadership style?
I'm only smirking because I'm not sure, I'm sure it could go in the range, Joey's all over the place, or he's, he gets something in his head and then this is what we're doing forever. I think, how would they describe me? I mean, nimble, I would say, so I don't mean to parse words. There's the positive and negative to not believing that status quo is relevant. So how things have been done in the past, look, it's good to know, hey, this is how it has been done. All right. And I very much go into everything with, I hate to say I don't care, but I don't care in the sense of that does not mean that's how we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So also bringing on team members, and that's why, when I talk about nurses or some people from the military or different jobs, it's the personality is I don't want to accept that just because something has been done a certain way, that is the way. And so I definitely will push boundaries on that, push comfort level on that. And, so you have to be able to accept that and work with that. And I think we've had good results from it. I'll say the downside to my personality, and you think, you can go to an ADHD type thing too, is there's a lot of shiny objects sometimes. There's a lot of things that can be distracting. And so it's sometimes with having so much comfort in uncertainty and having so much comfort in more or less chaos and a lot of things going, that can be very disruptive to others. And so, whereas to me, it might be like, okay, so let's try it. Okay, we're going to, we'll test this. And for me, it's just like this, that can be really disruptive to an org. And so for that, and really, I think sometimes trying to explain the why behind everything can sometimes even be too much. And so I think it's important that sometimes they're just our tasks. Look, this needs to be done. And sometimes, look, we're doing this and we're staying on it and wait. So be patient enough to get more results and not tweak too fast where it's disruptive to the whole team.
Okay. Can you give me an example of, like, I'm trying to visualize this.
Okay, so tweak. So let's go to our chocolate bar example. All right. So we had it, we sent your chocolate bar to these 7-Elevens and we're seeing that, people there, they're just ripping off the top and the whole thing's gone. So we're like, okay, all right, well then, okay, so what we need to do, well, I mean, we have this top, so, maybe we need to make it cut lower so that when it's on the shelf, we can do this. Or here, can we get a plan where we're going to have this actually on the counter? Like, how do we get it on the counter? Which to me, as I'm saying this, are both very reasonable choices. And it may be. Now, the other thing might be, well, wait, we saw this in the 6 stores we called. Are all stores like this? Or was it actually these were the 6? Now, these were the 7-Elevens. I'm picking a big example, but what about all the Circle Ks? What about the this, the this, the this? How is it impacting those? So do we have isolated incidents here? Or is this something that is systemic? So let's be curious and let's gather some more details first before, we jump and we have to switch. We might want to do something for those 6 stores, but that's 6 out of 6,000. Like, let's take it for the steps. So it can be that. It can be, hey, we talked to what we thought was this economic decision maker. They said they won't do anything if it increases their capex. Like, they have their capex budget. If it's $1 more, it's just not happening. Okay, so all right, well, people can then jump then, like, okay, well, should we do it this way? What if we adjust the price? So again, let's see. Is it the wrong segment? So sometimes it's just, okay, let's see. Let's gather some more. We do believe if we did our due diligence up front, we do believe it's the right segment. We do believe we did the right choices on the packaging. Avoid hubris, avoid being overconfident, but still stick to the guns enough to see some of it through before feeling the need to jump. Because if you jump and change, it's gonna be way too disruptive. And then they're not gonna believe when you say this is where we're going, because they're gonna think it's just gonna change anyway.
Okay. It sounds like you've seen people make mistakes with that and then the fallout that happens with the team. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. And I've made the mistakes for sure.
Okay.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's my oh crap, right? So those are the things to see. Here's a good example. The oh crap to share from so others don't do it. So yeah, so sometimes it is, sticking it out and going. Avoid the hubris though. So after a certain amount of time, if it's not, it's not damn the torpedoes, we're always still going. But you are going to go through disruption. And salespeople, if they don't sell it quickly and they get pushback, they're going to try to change something. Boss, we got to change the price. We got to lower it. We're getting killed on price. We're doing. Okay.
Of course.
We did have something. I didn't love our one leader for this, but we did put in something and it was an interesting result where in our CRM, you could not lose on price. It wasn't an option. So if it was price, like really, no, I'm not going to accept it. So what is it? Like, why didn't they? So we have to either like they didn't see the value, they didn't have the pain, they don't have but it forced. And then the other option, because if they couldn't have something else, it was, I don't know. Which salespeople don't really like to put a check mark next to the reason they lost is I don't know.
Yeah.
But price, like, did we really lose on price? Because there's not really a product like this. So what was it? So it could ultimately be what we were selling for. The client did not perceive the value for it because
For sure.
Okay. But I want you to get that feedback.
Yeah. And so based on that, what advice would you give to your younger self when you first stepped into leadership?
The advice would be, it's not about me. So
Okay.
it's about the team. And, when you're starting in sales, I mean, you want to be the person, right? Like, all right, you want to kill the deal, you want to get it. And to move up, you start in your junior sales position. I mean, you're doing cold calling, you want to be the best at that. And then you can go up and you can be an AE, you want to do that, and you're going to be awesome. And you can get on the national accounts, you want to do that, and you want to be awesome, and then you can do this. And it's, and you have to, there's leadership by influence, there's different things, but you want to be the person. Now, once you're leading a team, if you're the one saying, look at me, look what I did, you're not doing a good job, because it's about what the team accomplished. Your team is doing well, you've done well, and that's on you because the team did well. If you did something well and your team's not performing, you're actually not performing. You can't say, well, the team, who does the team report to? Who's leading the team? That's you.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think when you and I talked once, it was, I referenced, I was talking to a former 3-star general, and I'd asked him, I said, how do you assess your leaders? You have tens of thousands, technically, troops under you. So, I mean, you show up in Baghdad and you're meeting some brigade. How do you know how that leader's doing? And he didn't even flinch. He goes, look at his team. Are they performing? Do they understand the mission? If I ask them the question of what the mission is, do they all repeat it the same way? If I ask them why we're here, do they all repeat it the same way? And so if you think about that within a company, if you ask a head of a department, head of the company, head of sales, all right, let me talk to your leaders. What's our goal? How do we position this? Why do people want this? And you should have almost like good political parties, whether you like them or not. The ones that are good, they answer. You go on any show and watch anything, they're saying the same talking points in the exact same way. And that way, that message resonates deeply and clearly. So you think of brand effectiveness. All right, you're at a trade show, you're doing a podcast, you're doing an interview, somebody's speaking somewhere. Are you getting 22 different answers, or are you getting the same talking points? This is who we are. This is what we do. This is why people believe. This is why we believe. If that's the same, then you're setting a good culture, and your brand is going to be really clear.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of culture, you having experience working on both sides of the border in the US and in Canada. What differences and maybe similarities do you notice about leading teams in each country?
I've noticed client differences almost more than team differences, in the
Okay.
sense that, yeah, and there's team too. But look, in the US culture, it's very much, it's really part of the culture that anybody can succeed. And you
Mm-hmm.
can be the lowest, you can have no money, come from nothing, and it's almost, well, it's not almost, it's your right to become a billionaire, and it's celebrated, and they want that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so that's the positive side. So the result is when somebody looks at something, it's, I want to be the best, I want to be the biggest, I can do this, but it's also very me focused. It's very insular. So how do I get there? And lots of elbows to people that can happen on the way. I think in Canada, there's much more of a we mentality, and it's more about the team and us. Now, the flip side, so positive down there, anybody can be anything. There's a lot of aggression, there's a lot of innovation. Here, more collaborative. And I think a byproduct is also more conservative when it comes to innovation.
Mm.
And I'll take something, well, for anything. If it's innovative in the US and you're speaking to a client, their head is naturally going to, if I have this, how will this affect my business versus my competitors?
Mm.
Will I be able to keep my people more, which means they won't? Will I be able to then heal faster, which will drop my costs, which means I'm going to be more profitable? And they don't have this yet. I'm going to look better. My stock price is going to go up. So that comparison all the time and to be better allows that innovation, and they're more open to it because it's, I can have this and you don't yet. Better for me. And what I've seen in Canada is more of, how do I know who else here has it? So when you take that adoption curve, much further to the right here. People, I would
Okay.
say the society is more that late majority, at best early majority, but really more late majority. And in the States, you have a lot more that want to be early. Now, there's some things I think even that happen just because of, and look, I'm relearning the whole Canadian system, but when I have come back and I see that the only way I can seemingly send money is Interac, e-transfer, like I can't, there's no Venmo, there's no Instant, there's no, my cell phone, I kept my US cell phone for 2 years, and I was paying less, and I was in Canada 90% of the time, and I was paying less for my Verizon plan than I could get anywhere here. My in-laws flew to Florida to fly to a wedding in the Maritimes, and that was less than if they just had flown direct from Calgary. So there's things where, because of it, it almost I hate to say breeds complacency. It sounds to the extreme, but there's a degree where status quo is accepted versus really pushed on. No, we want to innovate. And we're seeing now more. The benefit of this tariff war is, I think there's a lot more patriotism of, no, you know what? We're going to support Canada and we want this and it's Canadian. Okay, we'll help innovate. But it's still slower moving up here for that. Much harder.
Yeah.
So we do our sandbox here. The US is going to be it's much easier for new products.
Mm-hmm. Is that part of your strategy with NanoTess to, or maybe you have already start moving into US FDA approval and
Look,
sales?
the world's our oyster when it comes to bodies, skin. Skin is the organ. So I mean, this is something that is really universal, and that is even part of the product design.
Yeah.
And really the social cause too. Is it's in a format to be accessible to all. I mean, they really have we don't want anybody left behind. If somebody really needs it, it's important that they're able to get it. So yeah, you'll end up seeing this in many more places beyond Canada.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Cool. Well, what final words of wisdom would you like to share with up and coming leaders who are listening?
I would say a degree of stay paranoid on the sense of there's always something new coming. There's always somebody just like you that is, I have an idea. So, on that same sense, ignore everybody that says, that would have been done if it could have. All those people who
Mm-hmm.
say that don't do anything. So, ignore advice quite a bit too, because there'll be lots of people who say, oh, no, that's not a good idea. The amount of times
Mm-hmm.
we've been told it's not a good idea. All right, they can all keep sitting on the couch and getting their paycheck by the hour. So push boundaries. And at the same time, when we're saying that, know that other people are doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
So never be complacent and always try to understand why you win, why you lose, but from their perspective. If you're always saying, well, look, the market just doesn't get it, then you don't get the market. You're not understanding. So you need to understand what they care about. And people make decisions on pain. They don't make decisions on gain. So understand the pain, then you will really excel.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much for everything you have shared, Joe. I really appreciate it, and I know our listeners will too.
Harry, it's great to see you again. Thanks for the discussion.
We're glad you joined us for Suits and Sneakers. If you want to be an expert guest, look for the link in the show notes. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to be notified of future episodes.